This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Metro Boxing CEO Frank Smith here in Manchester. Frank, good to see you. How has life been treating you?
Good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. Very well. Obviously, behind you, we've just got the recently announced Catterall-Eubank fight. The Warrior Code. It was obviously a fight which has been spoken about for a while. I know there's talk of maybe Catterall-Taylor 3 also taking place. But how quickly did this deal come together?
Really quickly, we had a few conversations about it, and then as soon as we said, right, this is the route we want to go down, spoke to DAZN, we made the fight in just a few days. It was. I think it's a perfect fight for both of them. I've got to be honest with you. I think for Jack Catterall, coming off the back of his loss, he needs a big name win, and that's what Harlem Eubank would give him. And for Harlem Eubank, I think this is his first step up in really to this level, you have to say. But if he can beat Jack Catterall, he sets himself in there amongst those big names, especially with the Eubank name coming off what has been a great run for the Eubank name. He puts himself in a great position for the big fights as well. So I think it's a perfect fight for both of them. Obviously at 147, this one, Jack Catterall stepping up to welterweight for the first time as well. So yeah, I'm excited for it. It's a big one.
Jack goes into this fight as the favourite, Frank. But with that in mind, what are you expecting from Harlem? As you said, he hasn't stepped up to this level previously, and he's quite an awkward and tricky fight for anybody, never mind somebody who hasn't fought at this level previously.
Yeah, look, I think like I say, I think it's a good fight for both of them. I think when you look at Harlem, people talking about the Adam Azim fight, for example, before for him, I think the Jack Catterall fight is a much better option for him, because Jack Catterall's proven at that level, right, at that higher level, where Adam Azim isn't. In reality, I think Adam Azim is a tremendous fighter, by the way, but he hasn't been at those levels Jack Catterall's been at. And if he would have gone into the Adam Azim fight, there's a lot of pressure on Harlem. I think there's less pressure in a fight like this for Harlem Eubank, being honest. If he wasn't to win, I still think he's a great fight for the likes of Adam Azim. Whereas the other way around, you don't then see the Jack Catterall fight if he fights him. I think he needs to go in there and put pressure on. I think Jack Catterall would have taken a lot from his Barboza fight, where he probably should have done more in that fight, and I think he realises that as well, and I think when you look at like Barboza going on to be on that Times Square show, for example, he'll be kicking himself because he could have done more in that fight, but it's experience of the sport, and he'll take a lot from that. But I think Harlem, it's Harlem's opportunity, because like I say, he's got the name, he's got the profile, he's just probably missing that big win, and that's what a win against Jack Catterall would be.
In the camp of Jack Catterall, I know obviously he's still got his sights set on trying to become a world champion. So if he's victorious against Harlem Eubank, where does this position him in trying to do so?
For Jack Catterall, I think it sets him up to go straight back into a maybe not a world title shot, but a big fight in the 147 division, and then a world title shot from there. I think he could have come back in a warm-up fight that didn't draw the interest. This is what this fight does. It draws interest and puts his name right back in the mix for those big fights. He's got to get past Harlem Eubank now on July 5th first.
I know you've been asked a lot about obviously Junior's comments, and I don't want to go over all of that once again, but just want to get any understanding if there's any issues in maybe making this fight off the back of anything that Junior had to say.
No, look, I have a very different relationship. I get on very close with Harlem. I've helped Harlem. I've sort of helped him wherever I could over the years. So not at all. It's a different relationship I have with Harlem to Chris. I'll be. But I was very respectful in that fight as well. I never said anything about who would win, who'd lose, because for me there's a balance between. And also, it doesn't matter what I think. It's irrelevant what I think. But no, it was easy to make it happen. Obviously, we've got a great relationship with the Sowlands and Wasserman Boxing. So the fight was made very quickly. And like I say, even if I was representing Harlem Eubank, I'd say it was the right fight for Harlem Eubank. That's my personal opinion.
Just with the theme of 147, obviously the division's a little tied up. You got Boots, who has 2 of the titles, looking at trying to make unifications, big fights, talking about Teofimo, Lopez amongst others. You got the Barrios and Manny Pacquiao fight recently announced, and then Brian Norman Jr. is obviously fighting Sasaki as well. So in terms of that division, how do you see it unfolding?
Yeah, lots going on at the minute. There's lots of talk about what could happen. Obviously, Boots, as you say, coming off the back of that great win against Danny Ennis. Obviously, you've got Crocker Donovan, final eliminator, which is all basically agreed now. Massive fight there. So the winner of that will obviously challenge for the IBF title. The WBA have a mandatory with our guy Giyasov as well against against Boots. Obviously, they elevated Boots to the WBA Super Champion to allow the Rolly Romero fight against Garcia. So they're the regular champions. So Giyasov is there as well. Pacquiao, Barrios, as you say, and then Brian Norman. I don't really know what Brian Norman's thinking. Obviously, we made him a big offer in the past for the Boots fight, and he didn't take it. I'm not sure why.
He says he feels a bit undervalued with what you guys have done.
He got paid a small fraction for his other fight. The reality is he doesn't draw. When you compare him to Boots, and I don't think there's many people in US boxing, by the way, that draw. I'm just saying, like, Boots is selling 10, 12, 15,000 tickets back on our last 3 shows we've done with him. That kind of shows the value. It not being harsh, that's just the truth of it, and ultimately it comes down to value. So we'll see what he decides to do. But yeah, lots of things playing out. Let's see, what happens over the next few weeks. There's lots to talk about. Different fight. Teofimo Lopez going to 147 as well. We'll see how things play out.
How serious is that? And have you had any talks around the Boots and Lopez fight front?
I think there's lots of different talks about a whole host of things. There's lots of different options for Boots as well. I think he's riding a high. He had that performance against Ennis. A lot of people felt it was a 50-50 fight, but he went in there and he showed dominant performance in there. So lots of options for Boots right now, and we'll see how things play out.
So Shakhram Giyasov, as well, as you mentioned, put him positioned as mandatory. Do you expect it to be likely that Boots would vacate?
It's a possible option, obviously. Giyasov obviously stepped aside to allow that fight with Ennis to happen. And now we've got to deliver for Giyasov as well. So we'll see what happens there. If Boots does vacate, then it'll be Giyasov for the Super Championship, possibly against Rolly Romero, you'd think. So yeah, we'll see how things play out.
What did you make of the Pacquiao Barrios announcement? I know Eddie previously said when there was talks to try and make Ben and Pacquiao, obviously Matchroom received a lot of criticism for that. I don't think this one has gone down too well either, especially given Manny's long way outside of a ring. So what do you make of Pacquiao Barrios?
I think for us, like where we've spoken about Pacquiao against Conor, look, Pacquiao's a huge name in the sport. In the last 20 years of boxing, he's probably top 2 or 3, maybe top 2 with him and Floyd Mayweather if you look at the last 20 years. And I think if I sat here and said, it's crazy, I understand it. I'm not saying it's right, or I'm not saying like it's got a great fight. Yeah, I get it. It's a massive fight. Because Manny Pacquiao is a huge name. I don't think Mario Barrios looked the best. He was obviously on that undercard of Jake Paul. But I get it. So I'm not going to stand here and slag it off. I understand it.
Do you think that's why, especially Manny's come back and he's kind of targeted Mario Barrios because of that performance? And whether it happens or not, maybe he feels like he has enough in the tank to beat him. But then does he also become that risk factor? Let's just say if he did win, that it gets the juices flowing and he looks towards a more of a difficult option, i.e. somebody like Boots Ennis. Ultimately,
he's going to do what he wants to do. Like he's been a huge name in the sport for many years. If he can go in and win a world title, how old is he? 45? 45? Wow, amazing. I mean, I don't know who's the oldest welterweight world champion. I don't know. I'm not even going to make it up. But take it step by step. I mean, Barrios is the much younger, fresher fighter. As I said, didn't look great, but lots of fighters don't look great in a fight and then come back. We'll see what happens. Again, I'm not questioning it. I understand it.
Speaking about potential fights, David Benavidez, Callum Smith, both camps have come out and said that it is a fight they're talking about, they're talking with their teams about. What can you tell me on Matchroom's front? Yeah,
discussions ongoing. Eddie's obviously got a good relationship with Luda Cubas Jr., so discussions ongoing for that fight. It's a brilliant fight. Callum Smith coming off the back of a tremendous win in a thrilling fight against Joshua Buatsi. It's a fight a lot of people will want to see. Benavidez obviously wanted that Bivol fight. Bivol's focused on the Beterbiev trilogy. So yeah, hopefully we can see it because it's a great fight. It would be great if we could bring it to the UK, but discussions ongoing.
Would you say that's the front runner for both men, from your knowledge?
It's definitely a likely fight. One of the other fights that's been spoken about possibly for Callum is Anthony Yard. When there was talk about 5v5 and other fights, so that's a potential fight as well. But I think from Callum's perspective, the Benavidez fight will be the focus for him.
On the 5 versus 5 front, has that been shelved or has he just gone quiet? What can you tell me?
There's always different discussions ongoing about different shows. There's been a lot of talk about that over the last sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It was a great format the first time around. Hopefully we can get it up and running again, but no news just yet.
On the Beterbiev Bivol trilogy, where do you stand on that, Frank? And I was also curious, interviewed Jose Benavidez Sr. last week, and he said that he'd heard that maybe Bivol was looking to have an interim fight before going into the Beterbiev trilogy. Anything in that?
No, nothing at all. The Beterbiev trilogy is there. Look, I think as well for Dimitri, the Canelo fight's a huge fight. If Canelo wants to avenge that loss, I believe Dimitri Bivol is an elite fighter, and I believe he'll do what he did in the first fight. But it's a brilliant fight, that one as well. He's got his eyes set on the biggest fights. You know, one thing about Dimitri Bivol, he's never shied away. You know, people talking about the Benavidez fight. He went in there against Canelo Alvarez at the point he was pound for pound #1. He went in there against Beterbiev, you know, twice within a space of 4.5 months. Like, you know, he's a brilliant fighter. Doesn't shy away from anything. He wants to just create, you know, a legacy for himself. I believe we'll see the Beterbiev fight, the trilogy. It's a tough fight. It was close. Look, I think. Personally, I think Dimitri Bivol deserved to win the first fight. He definitely won the second fight, obviously. But it was a close fight. And that's why it's the two best coming together. Because people want to see it. People want to see the best in the game come together, and that's what you get. And it will be no different the third time round, providing it happens. I'm confident it will.
When you're hoping to try and target that 4, and you're trying to marry it up with a similar date to Canelo Crawford, so then you can try and make a fight after that fight as well?
Look, he's come off the back of 2 gruelling fights. Both of them have, in reality, in like I say, in a 4-month time frame. He's taken a bit of time out. He's been away. I'm speaking to Vadim tonight, actually. So, you know, we'll see. But there's lots of talks ongoing about time frames for the latter part of the year. So yeah, but I can understand it. It's been a hard few fights back to back. Obviously, as well, he was training. You got to remember, he was training for the fight against Beterbiev back in June as well. So he's gone on a run of three good fights in a 9-month period. But yeah, I think the latter part of this year you'll see it.
Dave Allen's 2-fight deal, Frank. Talk to me about that and what you feel like you're going to go on to try and achieve with him.
Yeah, look, I think it was a tremendous night. May 17th wasn't the result for Johnny Fisher, but I think when you look at it was 2 good guys. You know, you can't say a bad word about either of those guys. You know, we've had history with Dave Allen over the years. Johnny Fisher is someone that we still believe in and will continue to push and make a plan. You know, he's going to take some time now, and then we'll make a plan of the route back. Heavyweight boxing is unlike anything else. He's 26 years old, Johnny Fisher, but for Dave Allen, I'm happy to see someone like him do so well, because he deserves to do well. You know, so yeah, there's lots to talk about what's next. There's lots of big fights to be made. I think he's taking the sport more seriously and enjoying it more than he ever has. So yeah, I'm happy for him, and yeah, we'll see where the next steps go. But there's big fights to be made. You know, as you saw in the Copper Box that night, he had a huge following himself and a massive fan base himself. So there's a lot of people who want to see Dave Allen do well, and you know, we got to try and get him the best and biggest fights possible.
Just final one, Canelo Crawford now becoming a Riyadh season show instead of a TKO event. Do you have any knowledge as to how kind of TKO is coming along now, if there's any issues in them trying to get that started? I don't know, unfortunately. I'm not one for me. I guess obviously the date moved. There's a UFC show the same night. Is from what I don't follow UFC too closely, but no, I don't know enough about it. It's a massive fight for boxing, though. Canelo Crawford is a fight people have wanted to see for a long time. I think after Canelo's performance the other week, people will start saying, "Oh, I think Crawford can do this," and that's the joy of boxing, isn't it? You have one sort of lacklustre performance, and everyone questions what you've done for the last 10 years. I think, though, excited for it. September 13th is going to be a huge night. Frank, it's a pleasure as always. Enjoy the rest of today. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.